Okay, we are just about to get started. I just want to start and say welcome everyone. This session is building the business case. So it's really talking you through what to look for, those things to consider as you're trying to build that business case for technology. Our presenter today is Stephen O'Donnell, Director of Product Marketing, and he absolutely loves doing these business cases. So my challenge to you is to try and stump him. He loves questions. Feel free to interrupt. Hold up your hand, any question. He is definitely willing to at least try to answer or follow up with you. So I'm going to hand it over to Stephen to kick off the presentation. And like I said, if you have any questions, any comments, or want to disagree with him, hold up that hand and he will love it.
Thank you, Britta, and thank you guys for joining me. People that are willing to come and talk about building a business case right after lunch already impress me. So thank you one and all for coming. I just want to talk about why, even if you have a lot of existing technology today, why building the business case can be so important. And what it really is that your legal challenges and things that you're facing as a department continue to shift and evolve over time. How many of you guys could honestly say that what your legal department handles today is the same as what it handled 10 years ago? No one. And there's a reason for that, and that is the general counsel that we all serve. And that includes Mitratech, who's building solutions for the general counsel. From the 1980s to today, there's three big forces that keep impacting and shifting what this role as the primary protector of an organization from risk has to think about. And one is the public. We live in a world of 24-hour news cycles. Earlier today, Jason was talking about Equifax. It was actually a different session I was in. Robert Bond, who is here to talk about GDPR, was talking about Equifax. That went from news mention to CNN top story in a matter of days. So we live in a world where anything that takes place that could be perceived negatively by public is picked up and put on the news instantly, causing tremendous damage to reputation, to business, beyond even what Equifax may or may not get fined for their breach of customer data. Regulators who are creating obligations globally that we have to adhere to just to conduct business. Probably no one in this room, other than myself to some degree, is actually in the business of compliance. You guys are in other businesses, yet you have to comply with a myriad of regulations, and your general counsel takes some responsibility for that. And then there's employees who are increasingly willing to sue and countersue company policies and practices. And examples that come to mind quickly, Volkswagen, where you had people in product and marketing who chose to do something to get around or cheat fuel standard tests, and what that's come back to is something that's so massive that it's actually going to end up costing Volkswagen more than Deepwater Horizon cost British Petroleum. It's incredible, and these were the actions of employees who did not have buy-in from the broader leadership or organization at Volkswagen. Yet Volkswagen has to pay the price. So what I'm saying with this is the role of a general counsel is shifting, changing, and it is not easy. That creates a ton of challenges and opportunities. And so when we look at the market, what we see is that there's changes to budgets that continue to go up to look for technology solutions. No surprise, data privacy and security is on this list. Intellectual property is on this list. Employee health and safety is on this list. Class action lawsuits are on this list. And we're continually looking for ways to solve those problems. In fact, our own acquisition strategy over the past year and getting into GRC markets themselves are based on data like this that shows that companies are having to move more and more into protecting organizations from that, and that general counsels are having to follow that. Yeah. Are you with Allstate? Are you with Allstate? Are you with Allstate Insurance? Is anyone here from Allstate? So this is really interesting what you just said. I built a business case with Allstate, and do you know the biggest benefit they have received from legal technology is reduction in real estate?
So I work for a general contractor,
Yeah,
a real estate developer, so I'm seeing the effect of technology in terms of how that drives real estate investment decisions.
right. And so Allstate,
It's up there that is really driving a lot of investment.
it's true. It's true. And Allstate's legal department is seen as a leader inside that company in terms of its paperless efforts. They've actually gone to being able to let a lot of attorneys. Insurance is regulated at the state level, and because of that, you have to have attorneys in every state you operate in. And they used to keep offices for every single one. And being able to get out of the world of paper and into a matter management system has allowed them to close offices. And it's not a benefit in a business case that I would normally think of to lead with or to discuss, but for them, it was absolutely the biggest benefit they got out of the system. So great point, thank you. And guys, please keep this interactive. It's a little bit of a dry topic, and so I totally invite questions. So as a legal operations professional, which most of you guys are in a legal operations role of some type, you know technology can make your team more efficient, can increase collaboration, can reduce the amount of legal spend, or reduce expenses in general. But how do you measure the amount? So just some basics here. The return on technology is the benefit to the buyer resulting from that investment. A high return on technology means the investment gains compare favorably to the cost. And so the basic formula of this is return on technology is the net gain divided by the cost. So if I spend 50 bucks and make 75, then I got a return of 0.5. And you'll hear this very often when people talk about the ROI. Is it 2x? Is it 3x? In my simple example here, it's 0.5x. That's what they're talking about. That's the number they're discussing. The business case, which we're going to talk a little bit more about today, is really the tool for advocating, ensuring that an investment is justified in terms of the strategic direction of the organization and the benefits they're going to receive from it. And I know I read those slides, but it's important that those basic concepts we kind of understand for the rest of the presentation. So why am I here? Why am I the person who talks so much about building the business case? It's because of my prior life at Progressive Insurance. And for anyone who's ever worked at Progressive Insurance, this lady follows you everywhere. I have not been at that company in 6 years, and I go on Google and Flo is everywhere. They know. They know I work there. She's actually a stand-up comic from New York. She never expected this to be her life, and she's actually a very nice lady. But so just that aside, the marketing Flo follows me everywhere. I was a business analyst inside of Progressive when I was approached by the general manager of the state of Texas who was facing a situation where Progressive had started using credit scoring in determining insurance rates. And the state of Texas had an issue with this. Well, a lot of the commercials you see for Progressive are all about buying insurance directly, calling Progressive directly. What you don't know probably is that even the bigger part of Progressive's business is selling through independent insurance agents. So when you see, when you're driving up the road and see A1 Auto Insurance or Joe's Family Insurance, a lot of times those agencies are selling Progressive products. Because we were trying to fight this legislation that would have prevented us from using credit scoring, we wanted to go and find a technology solution that would enable those insurance agents to talk to their local legislators on our behalf. How many of you know who your local state representative is? Okay, I don't. And most people don't. So it was basically software that would look up where your business was located and say, you are a constituent of this person, and it would get you in touch with them and help you deliver an email or a message on our behalf. That was the software they wanted to buy, and I was given this project. Nothing to do with my job. I was a business analyst. I'd never purchased software before. I'd never evaluated software before. So I was starting from scratch, and I made a lot of mistakes along the way. The biggest one is I did not consider the business case until the end. So I did the things that you guys probably would think to do when you're out looking for new technology. I went to industry analysts and tried to understand who the vendors were. I contacted those vendors. I issued an RFP. Granted, it was limited. I wasn't, but someone from procurement gave me a form, and I started looking at that and then changing my own questions. You're shaking your head. You've been through this, you know, and so then I arranged for demos, selected a vendor. I thought we were on the way, and then I hit the budget issue. And it turned out that the technology we wanted to buy could not be covered by the state of Texas operating budget. Therefore, I had to fly to Cleveland, Ohio, and get in front of a steering committee to compare this to other projects. And what did they ask me for? My business case. I had nothing. And I realized that I had now been in this process for 5-6 months, and I had not been building this all along. Then I had to go back. I presented a business case. There was a lot of discussion and actually disagreement around it. I had to go back and revise it. And eventually I got the technology purchased, but it was way bigger. This became my life for almost a year. And it was just some project I was given. So a few things that I learned along the way is you have to sell the project internally. Just because you understand how it's going to benefit, maybe others in your team do, you're eventually going to get to a point where you're going to have to present this to executives or to other departments or other leaders. It is not easy to identify all the software, all the benefits software can bring, because you are focused on your immediate pain point. My immediate pain point was getting this system in place so people could contact their legislatures. But I wasn't really considering the broader implications for the company of deploying this across an enterprise. What other units within the company would that affect? What other groups would that affect? How do we make that work? And because of that, my initial business case was unbelievably narrow and didn't show a big ROI. And to get this approved in the end, I had to loop in and make this an enterprise-wide business case and an enterprise-wide initiative. And the last item is, as I kind of went down the road with this, presenting an internal business case, there's some personal risk in that. You know, if I say this software is going to deliver X amount of benefits, well, someone's going to come back afterwards and actually look at what benefits it delivered. And so my message there is really think about how you're presenting it and what you're presenting, because it's not going to end with the purchase. People are going to be looking to measure the return on some of these investments that you've made later on. So we are going to spend the rest of this session talking about the benefits of enterprise legal management. So matter management, e-billing, and integrating those systems together. But what I will tell you is that these basic 3 areas, sources of value, are true of almost any technology you would evaluate. And the 3 places that typically you receive benefits out of is an increase of efficiency. So, staff time savings, how quickly you can process something. I'll just take a contract, for example. If it takes the legal team 2 or 3 weeks to turn around a contract, and technology can reduce that to 1 week, well, then that 2 weeks saved, maybe 2 weeks where the contract is in place before it would have been, and you might be realizing revenue from it beforehand. Or earlier than you would have without a system. A lot of this stuff is about, when you're looking to build this business case, it's about what is it I do today compared to what is it the technology will bring. And because of that, there are some inputs that you will be grateful that you did the work, you should be collecting as you go along. So if you were looking at something that is going to save people time, figure out how much time it takes them today. And sometimes you can do that by asking someone, but even better is if you can sit with them and actually watch them do the task. And I'll tell you why. Because if one of my managers comes up to me and says, hey, Stephen, how long does it take you to run a report? Probably going to give an answer that might be a little quicker than it actually takes me, because I want to appear efficient and quick. And so people will give you answers about how long that takes today. Take a little time and watch them do the task and see if that's real, or collect information from multiple people and try to start building inputs that way. Because at some point, you're going to want to measure how much time will actually be saved. You will need to collect some information on average salaries and days worked. And what I mean by that is you don't have to know every single person's salary, but as a group, if let's just say, for example, the paralegals within our legal department handle this work today, and they do it manually, and we're saying we're going to save them hours, or we're going to save that group days, you need an average weighted total salary just so that you can figure out the calculation later. And most times your HR department will have some of this information and will want to discuss with you why you need it, but you can get that from them. And then sometimes it's volumes of work. So how many matters do we handle each year? How many contracts do we handle each year? Things like that that you're trying to solve you're trying to find solutions for, you'll want to collect that information. Next big area is expense reduction. This could be legal spend savings. This could be improved sourcing or selection of outside counsel. This could be lower infrastructure costs. Maybe your company has, at some point or another, tried to build their own solution for something. Maybe they built their own database. I remember a Progressive years ago, we went crazy with Lotus Notes databases and thought they were the answer to everything. Guess what? They're not. But you know, but there was a tremendous IT effort internally to keep those databases alive. That is expense. So if you're able to buy technology that's going to all of a sudden IT doesn't have to support this or doesn't have to handle it, that is savings. If you had something that you hosted on premise and in the future you are going to host it in the cloud, well, all of a sudden there's a reduction of equipment that IT has to keep and maintain. So when you buy software and implement it on premise, well, IT has to go purchase servers to handle that system. And if you're considering hosting on something, well, they wouldn't have to do that. So that's part of it as well. And then the third area is risk mitigation, which is protection of revenue or improved outcomes. And on these, the thing you want to collect beforehand is what is the average cost of an adverse event? Settlements, claims, fines, whatever it is you're trying to solve for, how much did the company spend on that? And then any associated revenue, you'll want to have that as well. And so these are all some of the items that you're going to want to collect as you start evaluating software, so you'll be able to build this business case. All right, I'm going to start with e-billing because it really is the simplest one. And the reason it's the simplest one to both explain to others is its hard costs. And so a lot of times when you're presenting an ROI, you'll have someone in the room, and it's usually a guy from finance, who will say, okay, you're showing me a bunch of benefits, but which of those are hard dollars? Which is money that we're spending that can be saved right away. And e-billing provides a lot of those benefits. E-billing also saves the staff time, but most of the benefit is on the side of reducing legal spend. And the nice part about e-billing, as opposed to matter management and some of the other technologies that you might look at, is it's really well established in the market. So there are tons of examples, meaning your peers, that have information on how much they've been able to save. So the main ones here are enforcement of billing guidelines and negotiations. So your attorneys go out and negotiate rates with a firm. You need something in a system that is going to enforce that, unless that same attorney that negotiated is going to review every invoice. Depending on your organization, that may happen, but typically that's not the case. Improved accuracy of invoices due to greater scrutiny by firms. Absolutely proven in the market. If you don't have an e-billing solution, law firms tend to scrutinize the bill less. If they know there's e-billing to deal with, and they know there's guidelines in there, the law firm will take a little more time to scrutinize their own invoice before submitting it. Eliminates overpayments and duplicate payments. This one actually surprised me when I got there, but you would be amazed how many times law firms send the same invoice over and over to different people, and how often corporations end up paying the same invoice twice and not catching it until later. Do you think the law firm proactively comes back and said, hey, you paid me twice? Every once in a while they do, but a lot of times they don't. And a lot of times, guys, that's because they don't have systems on their end sometimes to recognize this either. Streamlining collaboration with outside counsel to reduce cost. E-billing is a good way to both share those guidelines and collaborate on things such as accruals and items like that for matters that last longer. And allowing the legal department to take advantage of early pay discounts. A lot of law firms are out there offering early pay discounts, but if you don't have any automation, if you don't have any system in place, it might be challenging to process those invoices in a speed that's fast enough to take advantage of those. On staff time savings, it's mainly about reducing the time spent processing invoices and responding to law firm inquiries. Nothing is worse for those that have never had an e-billing system than a law firm continuing to call in and ask about the status of an invoice. Then you have to go find the person who might have it, find where it's at in AP, all that stuff that e-billing actually communicates that information to the law firm, and so your staff isn't spent time running around trying to chase that stuff down. And then saving attorneys time approving invoices. So those are some of those benefits. But let's just say, for our example today, we just want to concentrate on the legal spend benefits. This is generally accepted in the market as what anyone can receive from e-billing, which is about 5.5% of legal spend. That is not to say there are not examples out in the market of people saving 10% or more through really aggressive e-billing programs or really aggressive sourcing programs. There are. But this is basically what you can receive by turning on the switch with e-billing. And it's about 5.5% total. And so for our example today, I've picked a legal department that has $10 million in outside legal spend. So at max benefit of the 5.5%, it would be $550,000 in annual savings. Now, how do you prove this? Well, you could go the very long method of actually trying both, like running some of your actual invoices through an e-billing system and seeing how many errors and how many things are caught, versus someone manually going through and reviewing it and seeing what they catch. You can try to do it that way. The one thing I would say about e-billing, which I mentioned earlier, is that this is very established in the market. So before you go that far, I would suggest talking to references and talking to peers. Anyone who is a vendor of e-billing should have many references to provide you who will be able to talk about what return they received from implementing it. And you can use an average of those or those data points to build your business case if you don't want to go through the manual process. And I'm not discouraging you from it. I would just tell you that e-billing has been out there for some time, and so there's a lot of evidence out there that you can use to help explain this internally. Hey, and I put some quotes up here of people that have done just that and have actually talked about the benefits that they have received from e-billing. I would suggest you do the same when you are talking to references and talking to peers. Capture some of the things that you're telling them and think about incorporating it back into your business case that you're going to end up presenting internally, because that actually goes a long way in building credibility. Any questions on e-billing? Okay, this is the one that's a little fuzzier and a little harder, which is the benefits of matter management. And the reason it's a little fuzzier and a little harder is because when you're talking about staff time, you're talking about people and how people spend their day and how much time they spend doing it. And there are a ton of these savings benefits, time-saving benefits in matter management. My recommendation for you here, having done this a number of times, is select the benefits that everyone is going to recognize. One of the mistakes I made in that first business case that I did at Progressive was showing a myriad of benefits that we were going to be able to receive in terms of saving people time. But people started questioning all of them. Like, really? Are we going to get that? There are some on here that everyone will recognize because it's a pain point in your department today. So some of the ones that I'm mentioning here, the effort to open matters and budgets for a legal admin. If you did not have a matter management system, this is basically creating the file and collecting all the information for the attorney. That can be a process for a legal admin or a paralegal who is receiving a new matter. Time to generate reports for business users. Without a system in place, if you're having to get someone to actually analyze the data, even questions like, how much have we spent on this type of matter, or how many days to close on this type of matter, can be very difficult and time-consuming to try to get at. Reducing the time to generate and store legal documents. Improving staff attorneys' management of assigned matters. What I'm really talking about there is attorney research time. How much time is are attorneys having to shift through past cases, past matters, cross-reference other items to try to reach a resolution. Streamlining contract collaboration with non-legal groups. Everyone sends contracts to legal. Improving end-user productivity due to integration and navigation benefits. If you guys are using 3 or 4 different systems today, maybe you have one document management system, maybe you have one system where you're tracking matters and assignments. Maybe you have another one where you're tracking legal spend. If there is someone who's having to switch back and forth between all those systems, not only is accuracy impacted, because it's so easy to make a mistake if I'm having to enter stuff over and over again, it all adds up to people time. Risk mitigation, matter management also has a benefit here. And this one really kind of matters on this one is a little dependent on what is your business as a legal department. What business are you in? So reducing fraudulent claims, that might be a big thing for your business, or it might not be a thing at all because you guys don't handle claims. But maybe you use it as a contract solution. So preventing us missing a contract milestone or renewal date or anything like that can have a revenue protection element to it. You know, maybe there's a contract, we recognize that contract's bad, we want to make sure to get out that contract, and we missed the notice date. And then improving legal outcomes, and this is really where the analysis of the data in a single source of truth comes into most play, is can I analyze what we've done in the past and create a strategy for how we handle that situation going forward based on our experience. So you can see even me going through and explaining these are not all easy to explain, and I can imagine if you got up and started talking about those at your own company, you would get a lot of questions. And so that's why I say pick 3 or 4 that are the ones you think everyone will say, yeah, it's a major problem and we got to do something about it. And for my example here, I picked 3 of them, creating a matter, generating a report, and attorney research. So let's say, and I'm just going to walk you through one of these, let's say that we don't have a matter management system today, and we have to spend an hour putting together opening a new matter, creating a record, creating a file, if you will, assigning an attorney, creating a budget for that matter, selecting outside counsel potentially for that matter. All of that, finding the right person in the department to even work on this. Let's say that takes an hour today in a matter management system, because so much of that is automated based on business rules and things that you've set up. You can do it in 15 minutes. Then you are saving 45 minutes per matter. Let's say our department has 2,000 matters, then we are saving 90,000 minutes per year on that one item by implementing matter management. Let's say the fully weighted salary of the person that handles that particular task is $90,000. And when I say fully weighted salary, that includes their benefits and equipment. And typically HR or someone in operations will have that data for you. If we figure there's 236 working days in a year, that comes out to $381 a day. If we say there's 8 productive working hours a day, it's $48 an hour, and that transfers into $71,500 a year in savings. And so that's the way you would measure time-saving benefits. And there's another one in here for generating a report, and there's another one here for attorney research. Generating a report, the benefit varies by how many reports I create. The one on attorney research has to do with how much time attorneys spend per week researching. In this example, I said that they were spending 2 hours a week, and that by having a searchable single system across all of their matters, they would save half that time. Attorney time, however, is a lot more expensive than paralegal time or admin time. And so anything that you implement that would actually save attorneys time, it will be big in your business case because their salaries are so high. And once again, even if it's just describing the pain point, as you talk to people and understand the current state, continue to collect quotes. Continue to collect those data inputs from people you have in the organization. Think about how much more powerful my presentation is if I can sit here and say, I spoke to George about the time George is spending creating reports today, and we're going to be able to reduce that in half. Or I spoke to Britta about how much time she's spending researching matters today, we're going to be able to reduce that in half. And doing things like that, guys, will help you kind of build momentum into your presentation and the initiative to purchase software. By the way, I'm glad George is in the room. This presentation is actually one that I originally gave at ACC Legal Ops over the summer with George's comrade, Brian Berlew. Brian's not here, but I still have a Prudential slide at the end, so we might pick on George and ask him a question or two about it. But I've done this work with Prudential before. Okay, so then there's also some integration benefits. So if you combine matter management and e-billing together, there are some additional benefits that you can get. The biggest one I'm describing here is optimizing the mix of law firms used to reduce costs, but other people will describe this as sourcing. So let's say that we have 2 different firms in New York that we use for patent and IP infringement. And one of the firms, one costs a little more than the other, but the attorneys seem to like it. But after I analyze the outcomes of those matters and the legal spend on those matters, it turns out that the firm that's used less is also costing the company less and getting a similar result. You can use technology to make a recommendation that we start changing how we select law firms inside the department. The biggest one, the best case I've seen of this is actually Chevron, although I'll tell you that AIG and others that are here at the conference do a lot of work around this. But Chevron actually set this in where when you're opening a new matter, and they're an oil company, so they have lots of real estate matters. So they select real estate matter in Southern California. It brings up law firms as suggestions inside the system. Now, the managing attorney will still know best. And so he can make an exception and not select one of those firms and select a different specialty firm if he wants, but he has to put a reason in there why he did it. And that information goes back into their sourcing program, back into their database, And over time, they've been able to save millions of dollars doing this, just from selecting outside counsel. Another one is tendering. The way to think about this is it's similar to a blind RFP, where you may have a set of bespoke work that you handle every year. Let's just say, for example, and this may not be a perfect example, but let's say all non-disclosure agreements, for whatever reason, are outsourced to a certain law firm. Is that law firm actually giving you the best value for that very repeatable work? What you can do with tendering is basically auction that set of work out to a number of qualified firms, and they can send you bids on the work that you could compare internally and make decisions about. So we have a few companies that use the integrated benefits as well. But trying to do this just in e-billing is difficult, and trying to do this just in a matter management is difficult because you need to be able to tie outcomes back to spend. And so that's one of the big advantages to having matter management and e-billing tied together. Other benefits, budget collaboration. You may have a budget on your matter, but if your e-billing system is not connected to your matter management system, the way that you would accrue and update that budget is a lot more difficult if the systems aren't tied together. And then there's just reducing the time spent switching back and forth. So for our sample business case, we had $10 million in outside spend. Let's say that we recognize that we could save 1% an additional reduction through improved sourcing by having both a matter management and e-billing system. So that would be $100,000 a year. So now you've got some e-billing benefits, you've got some staff efficiency matter management benefits, and you figured out that you have an integration benefit as well. And your feeling is that internally, this set of benefits is what people will recognize as being valuable, and this belongs in my business case. Well, then you have to put it all together. So the e-billing benefit, we said, was $550,000 a year. So I'm going to do a 3-year business case, and I'm going to put the $550,000 on that line. The matter management benefits that we came up with earlier, the total from those was $234,750. So we put that across that line. And then we said, there's another $100,000 in benefits from sourcing by tying those two systems together. So all of that comes to $884,750 a year. Awesome, right? You're done. No. So once again, you're going to get in front of a room of people, and in there you'll have the finance guy. And I don't want to make the finance guy the enemy. In fact, I work with our finance guy at Mitratech all the time. Finance guys are great for gut checking your work. But what they're going to say is, yeah, right, you're going to get all those benefits on day one. And they're right. It takes time. It takes time for users to adopt. It takes time to implement. It takes time to get everyone using the system to their fullest. So the typical curve that I have used is in year 1, after you have a system go live, you realize half those benefits. And in year 2, you receive 80% of those benefits. And it's really year 3 where everyone is on board using the system. All your firms are on board. All of your users are on board. They're all using the system. That's when you can realize full benefits. Having something like this in there will make your business case a lot more believable and a lot more attractive and actually realistic, because that is the reality. It would be wonderful to think, I drop e-billing in and I'm getting all the money in day 1. But it's just not real, because a lot of your law firms might go 6, 8, 12 months before they even use it again. And it'll take time for them to get onboarded. So if we multiply the percentages by our annual benefits, we get $442,000 in the first year, going up to $707,000 in the second, and we reach the $884,000 in the third. That is a $2 million benefit over 3 years to the organization. Let's say the annual software subscription that we're considering is $100,000 a year, and there is a one-time $150,000 project to implement that software. The total annual cost in year 1 is $250,000. year 2 is $103,000, year 3 is $106,000. That means over that time, $459,000 has been the total expense to the company, and so our ROI is benefits divided by cost minus 1, and so you have a 3.4x ROI on this investment in legal technology. And that's basically how you do it. There's always some other factors. There's always some other items to consider, and I'll talk about a few of those, but that's basically how you do it. Yes?
What about on the other side of the equation, which is some of the additional costs to the organization in terms of support
Yeah.
or operations or input and all of that the producers and
Should
the experience? How do you take that in?
It should absolutely be included in your costs. I think in this example, I was picturing a hosted solution that wasn't going to take a lot of internal resources, but if it is going to be a solution that is going to take internal resources time to manage, that should absolutely be included in your costs, and you should think about it. It's a great question. Other questions? Yes? Sure, that should be in your benefits. That should be in your benefits. So in other words, if IT's spending a lot of money today supporting maybe the lack of technology, basically, I mean, maybe IT's the one who has to help you put together reports each time today because you don't have a system and you're not able to run them themselves. If that resource is going to be taken back to IT, you should put that as a benefit for the legal department. So the other thing to work on is, my slide didn't move. Think about how to present this as well. So this is our business case, and there's some really nice, you want to make this really nice and clear for people. So we're saying there's a 3-year benefit of $2.034 million. The payback period is merely a calculation on year 1. So just the year 1 benefit versus the year 1 cost divided by 12. When will I start getting this positive return? And what this is saying is 6.8 months after the solution goes live, you'll begin to get ahead on your investment. How much of that is legal spend versus efficiencies? In this case, it was a 73-27 split. The reason that is important is sometimes finance will want to know, well, how much of this is hard savings versus people time? And their point about people time is typically, well, you're not going to let go of those people. And that's true. But the reality is, guys, that one of the reasons you're here at Interact is because the load and work of the legal department just keeps growing. So even if it's not about, yeah, I'm not going to implement matter management and get rid of 5 people. However, I won't have to race out and hire 5 more right now because we're in a situation where we don't have any technology. Or it could be that those people could be doing higher value work than the work that they're doing today. And so you become more productive that way. So when do you build this business case? I'm going to suggest that you start collecting inputs throughout. First of all, when you're doing the planning of the different legal technology that your department needs, you should be thinking about ROI right then. I mean, what are the things that we could do that is going to give us the biggest bang first? I am sure most of you don't just have one project that you could be doing. You probably have 4 or 5 projects you could be doing. So considering ROI early and kind of using that to help prioritize what we should be doing first can help you build a really solid plan that will benefit the organization in the shortest period of time. You should research the market and try to find examples of people and how much they've saved, or businesses like yours, especially peers within the same industry. So industry publications, talking to colleagues, talking to references, even talking to your procurement department, who more than likely have seen a lot of business cases in the past, can help you. During the evaluation, when you guys are doing RFPs, demos, references, ask vendors for their tools and data that will help you create this business case. or have them present a business case to you. Doesn't mean that's the one you have to present, but those inputs that you get from the vendor who's done this many times can be really helpful in you identifying some of the benefits you might not have been thinking of that people are realizing. Then calculate your ROT over some period of time. Maybe that period of time matches the subscription or the term that you're signing up for. So if I'm going to do a 3-year subscription, the business case maybe should be 3 years as well. And then when you present, find the best way to present your findings and then be willing to receive feedback. Okay, so if you get up in front of your team or a cross-functional team and they're giving feedback to you about that, be willing to take that. The business case is something that you're trying to get internal alignment on. You want people to agree to. And so benefits that they don't think you're going to realize, be willing to remove the business case, and ones that you think you're not talking enough about, be willing to include those. And so there's really no client I know that has done a better job of thinking about how, it's Team Connect in particular, but thinking about how the technology they already own can help them solve additional problems than Prudential. And so I actually, one of the biggest business cases I ever built was for your company, George, where I sat with Marat and Brian and others and built a 7-year technology plan that had a business case tied to it. And some of the areas that Brian talked about were around expanding to compliance and how there was a different system over there, and they were able to build that out in Team Connect. And another one was operations in terms of the requests. Can you tell us just a little more about these?
Yeah, so with our implementation now, we really looked at Team Connect as a platform, a platform to expand on. So it's strategic for us to get that implementation of completion solid. Thank you. Okay, so once we have that, we rolled this out 2.5 years ago, and since then, when we started rolling it out, we had 10 practice areas, and one major practice area was the litigation. And since then, we've rolled it out to compliance, we'll roll it out to operation, we even roll out to high-tech investigations. And within those areas, we've got many different integrations, such as downstream and upstream applications that those specific business areas are using. Especially right now with our investigation, we've got incidents tracking that's coming into Team Connect, and we're actually looking at another system that the data that Team Connect is collecting, we're going to push it down to another application that they're using. So and we just finished an upgrade. So there's no shortage of work in our area. So.
But on some of these, George, if you had gone down a path of trying to implement different systems for every one, you probably would have just further complicated your infrastructure.
I would have just, kill myself. No, it wouldn't make sense because, I mean, true to the name of the product, Team Connect, because the reason why you want to put that in there is because you want to help the business not to just their work, but to collaborate, to help them to talk to each other. So things like when we first put in Team Connect, litigation was a heavy user. So, but litigation, there are certain different aspects of litigation that they reach out to. For example, e-discovery. So our e-discovery people use Team Connect as well. Investigation, they're all tied together. So why do you need a disparate system and then you need to kind of send email out to each and every one of them and then spreadsheets or documents? Why not come together and just play nice? So.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you, George. So a few key takeaways that I want to leave you guys with. Consider the return on technology when you're prioritizing your legal projects. It will add a lot of credence to the way you guys plan things out. Collect inputs on the current state of affairs throughout your evaluation project. Talk to people, sit down with people who are doing the tasks, really try to understand how long it takes them to do something and whether or not it can be improved. Display benefits that you know the company can achieve and that stakeholders that you're presenting the business case will respond to. Understand that it'll take time for the user community to fully adopt and achieve all the benefits. There is a ramp up and an adoption period. Consider whether or not your current systems can handle new projects and challenges before you run out to buy a new one. Track your savings post-implementation, so that if someone comes back to you and says, hey, Stephen, did we get the benefit that we thought we did? And by the way, the legislation I was involved in did end up passing the way we wanted it to, so I didn't have to do too much of that after we put this in place because the win was fairly obvious, but other groups around the company did ask. And then ask for help. Your Mitratech account manager can provide you for important inputs into the business case. I can provide you important inputs into the business case. Britta was correct at the beginning of the presentation. I do actually enjoy this work. Maybe I'm just disturbed, but I actually enjoy doing it. And I would love to talk to you guys more about it. So consider it and think it over. And that's all I have. Thank you. Please take 5 minutes to complete the session feedback form versus the mobile app. There's my email information. I have cards with me. If any of you guys want to talk about building a business case or you're facing that challenge right now, please let me know. Thank you.